Welcome to Home Video Hangouts. Today I'm going to be reviewing Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the latest Ghostbusters movie in the franchise. I'm going to share what I liked about it, what I think could have been improved, and give you my rating of this movie. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the review. So one of the first things I really enjoyed about this sequel was that they kept a lot of the original props from the earlier movies as well as the original setting. So this movie still takes place in New York and is centered around the fire station that was used in the original Ghostbusters movies. And I think that added a really special element to this movie and a lot of the heritage from the franchise. And that goes along really well with how they incorporated old cast members and new cast members from the series into this movie. And I think this worked a lot better than what we've seen in some of the prior Ghostbusters sequel films where they had a completely different setting or location, or when they had a completely different set of actors and actresses. I think this was a great combination of a lot of the old elements from the older movies and just a few elements from the newer movies. In addition, I think it was great how they incorporated so much of the older cast into this movie. They did a great job of incorporating both the older cast and the newer cast into this movie, and that I could tell was the main goal of this movie. That was what a lot of focus was put onto. And I think that made for a film where both older fans of the franchise will appreciate this to some degree, and newer fans of the franchise who maybe just watched the past couple of movies will appreciate this as well. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens next with this series, if it continues, based on this combination of characters that are in play now. Then what I enjoyed most about this movie overall was the great use of special effects and visuals here. The lighting and the special effects in this movie are incredible. This is very much a movie that I really hope gets a good 4K release with HDR support, because this is a movie I really want to watch in my home theater on 4K. And I think in the theater, it looked great, but I especially want to see this on 4K disc. And I think some of the elements that especially stood out in terms of the special effects were anytime you saw the ghosts, they had a great glow to them. It was a really dark setting and they were really vibrant and had a lot of pop. And I think those special effects are what really stood out in this movie above all else for me. We've seen some of the other movies having cool special effects, and even the originals for their time had some pretty crazy scenes too, but this one really stood out in terms of both the lighting and special effects. Now moving on to what I think could have been improved here. So I said earlier that one of the things I enjoyed was that they incorporated old cast members from the original Ghostbusters movies with more recent additions of cast members from the past couple of movies. But in addition to that, they even added even more characters to this story. There's a few new characters we see introduced here, which makes for a very crowded movie in terms of there's a lot of well-known actors and actresses in this movie, and it almost seems like too much. They're introducing too many characters to where it's almost like they're trying to make a Ghostbusters Avengers movie here. It's kind of funny how they did that, and it's on one hand kind of helps with bringing in people who appreciated the earlier first movies along with people who appreciated the last couple of them. But at the same time, it almost was just too much, and I think that they didn't necessarily need to introduce new characters or bring in so many different cast members. I could see if maybe this was going to be the last Ghostbusters film ever, then maybe that would make sense, but I have a feeling these are going to continue with how recently they introduced some of these people. And so with that in mind, I think that's one thing that they could have done a little bit differently, but some people will appreciate this as well, I'm sure. Also, the plot in this movie wasn't that great in my opinion. It seemed pretty dull and very similar to what we've seen in other Ghostbusters movies, especially the originals, and some people may appreciate how close this was to one of the original's plots. But at the same time, it just seems like it's a formula they're sticking to where that's very predictable. You have a very good idea what's going to happen throughout the whole thing. And in this one also, the humor is all very predictable and kind of lame. There's no jokes that really stood out to me here. All the jokes just seem super cheesy here and weren't that funny, and I think they could have done a lot better with that because Ghostbusters is very much a comedy movie, and I think if they're going to make more of these, they should really improve on the comedy they're putting into them. So last thing I want to mention about what I think could have been improved here is I wanted to say something about this franchise as a whole. This seems like it's becoming a franchise that's starting to be overdone, where they're continuing to use the reputation that the Ghostbusters franchise has to just bring in more and more cast members while keeping the old ones around and sticking to a set formula that's worked in the past. And I think what they really need to do, if they really want this series to continue and continue to be successful as well, is they need to introduce something new, something that people aren't expecting, that will make a major change to this franchise. I think a change in setting or a change in a few cast members isn't going to work. They need to fundamentally change kind of the formula of these movies. I think if they improve on the comedy and keep that element, but maybe they make them either a little scarier, or they incorporate some kind of continuous adventure that the Ghostbusters go on, to where this almost has maybe more of a feel of like an Indiana Jones type of thing, where there's an adventure the characters go on instead of just sticking around New York and fighting off whatever ghost happens to be in that movie. I think that could add a new element to this series that might give it new life. And I really hope that they can do this series justice with future releases if they're going to keep it going, so it doesn't just die off, because this really is a great series and there's so many fans of it, especially the earlier original films, and there is a lot of potential for the series to keep going if they do it right. So if you enjoy the Ghostbusters movies up to this point, there's likely things you'll enjoy about this movie as well. I'm not going to say it's the best movie in the Ghostbusters franchise, but I would give it a 6 out of 10 for my rating. It has some incredible visuals and special effects and great lighting, and it's fun to see some of the new characters they introduced, as well as a return from the original cast. But let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are in this movie, or what Ghostbusters movie you like best, and make sure to hit the like button and subscribe button below to see more of my upcoming videos and movie reviews. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.